The premise of An Age Contrived is this. Have you ever read American Gods? There you go. Does that have anything to do with the mechanics? Not at all. But is there a fun puzzle of delayed gratification? Kind of like what all religion promises? Yes! That's An Age Contrived. The premise is that you are a god amongst other gods and you want to be worshipped more than the other gods because if you do, you will come out on top. It's American Gods, which is a fantastic book. Highly recommend. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about this, and it's got magnetic cardboard, baby. Glue that to your metal tower and slap you home for supper. Let's set this up. Here we are, a theme contrived. For those of you who don't have this yet, and if you do get it, the best way to learn this game is to sort all of your player components first, put them into bags, makes it a lot more manageable than trying to absorb everything at the same time. But give me the board. Here's the full board. It just fits in my full frame, so we're gonna push it up so we can see some player board. You're gonna take these little metal things and you can stick them underneath here and slot them in, or you can ignore that completely and just stick it on top. Looks a bit uglier, but that's what we're gonna do. No, we're not. We're gonna slot them in where we want. Like this, lifting the entire board. They're pretty annoying to do, but you get the hang of them. Oh my god. You see how annoying this is. You want to put it in, you want to put the middle ones in first, and then you want to lift this up and kind of stick them in, and then hold them as they go back down. That's the best way to do it. Each player is also going to get a player board, a transmutation device, and all of their player pieces. This is the automa for that character, and then here will be kind of how you set up your own transmutation devices. All of these will have numbers on them. You'll put them out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you'll put the correct symbols to match your little starting setup. So here we have the rose and some hourglasses. This is for 2 players, so we'll set it up for a 2-player game. It'll also tell you what symbol to put in this starting pool. You'll drop 2 of each symbol in your reserve, which you can gain throughout the game. And then you'll take the ones that are left over and they're put into your sort of reserve pool. You'll also get these bridge tokens, which you get to cover your special abilities that are happening on your own personal mat. And you have these extra 0 tiles, which you will get to push on as the game progresses and kick other things off. Then just to finish the setup, you'll always have this tower that's in the middle there, and you'll also pick a number of statues equal to the number of players. So you always have this as your +1, and that's to say we're doing a 2-player game, which is what this setup is for. We would have these 2. You pick whichever 2 you want, but I'm just picking these 2 because, well, we're the closest to them. These are all magnetized, which is kind of cool. You can see how they're just gonna snap together for me. Boom, boom. And then you'll put them in their respective waiting area with the number 1 on top. You'll also grab your player pieces and you'll start next to a specific region. So let's say we have our 2-player game set up here. And up here will essentially be a market of tiles that you can eventually add to your transmutation device. In addition, each separate area will get their own potential bonus, which we'll talk about when we get there. All right, most of the game resolves around this board because, according to our handy dandy player info, on your turn, you will either advance or you will do actions. Those are the only 2 things that you do. When you advance, you basically push this forward with something that you had in your reserve. You can fill that up with tokens. I just took the tokens from over here. That's your turn. Done. Advanced. Perfect. You've shifted things around. Why might you want to shift things around? Well, because also on your turn, you can take these 5 actions down below. Whatever tiles are positioned down below, they are going to be used to take actions to essentially manipulate the things on top and send them out to the main board. So for here, for example, you can send out anything in this spot and this spot. Over here, you can send out something that's either in this spot or this spot. And later on, as you swap things out, you might be able to send 2 things from one spot instead of just 1. Here, this allows you to purchase additional stuff from the market to upgrade your own chain. And here, this one allows you to move and manipulate things on the board. The feet symbol deals with manipulating and moving your character, so moving them along the track. The purple and the gray symbols, they deal with manipulating your own player board by basically taking an energy and putting it in a step and then moving it up, 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 that once it reaches the top, it gets to go up onto the board, which will score you points at the end of the game. And then finally, number 5, you can do any of the 4 actions you want. 1 to 4, take them how you will. You can double up on something so that you can send both of these at the same time, right? If I use that one and this one, I can send both of these up because this only allows you to send once at a time. What are you sending to the main board? Well, most of it will revolve around these different monuments. So these monuments will have symbols on them. We see here there's 2 roses and a little hourglass. And if those symbols ever get filled up, boom, 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 whoever completes it, who put the last tile in, so say it wasn't me, say it was my opponent, who puts that last tile in, boom, they are going to get to move that final tile into this bound energy section. And then me, I'm going to get to take the action and the symbols on my tiles that I have contributed. In addition to being able to gain additional energy from over here, my reserve, or taking the special ability of that monument. This one being upgrading one of my actions. So I would take this handy dandy little tray and I'd say, yes, you know what? I want to upgrade it so that this action allows me to put 2 of these 3 spaces up there and allows me to fill things more effectively. Rather than it used to only being 1, this one can be 2. These you can swap out, and there is a point of punching them out and swapping them for like the solo mode, because then you would rearrange the order of how these things have come out. And I guess you could rearrange them on your own for like different variability. However, I don't, because I don't want to lose them, and you can just put your little upgraded tokens on top of them because you're really not going to upgrade that many. So to recap, you can advance, or you can take as many actions as you want. You can take all 5 actions. If you had something that was replaced where you had 2 things down here, well, guess what? You can take that action twice. Boom, boom. Easy peasy, and send things off. You are going to want to mainly put resources into these building pieces, which once you complete, shebang, they all magnetize so nicely onto the side to create a beautiful, fun 3D ship. As you can see, my little 3D ship, it's hanging. Oh, it fell. But it's hanging up. Okay, this was a mistake. I've made a huge mistake. The other places that you can send your spots to are here on this tile board. I could send them up there, and so I'd be able to purchase things easier. I'd purchase this for 1, and it would all shift down. I purchase this for 1, etc. I'd purchase that one for 2, and then I'd replace things on my board with these. If I had any energy on them, that would go away and go back to my reserve, but then it would replace it in its spot in the market, and then I would have more actions down the line. So you can invest in this pool as well. You can also invest over here in these different achievements. So if you ever have 4 feet on your board, you can send a type of energy over there from the top, and then you've claimed this thing, which at the end of the game, for all the compasses that you've managed to put out on spaces on the board, you're going to get 2 points for each. Or you can ignore that entirely if you're in a 3-player game and then just get 5 points, which is better. It's just better. You're going to keep on doing this, either advancing on your turn and filling things up, or taking as many actions as you want until all the towers are complete. That's the game. In its essence, that's an Age Contrived. A contrived theme for a simple conveyor belt puzzle. If you like games like Solkin or games of delayed gratification, like Chris's High School Journey, you might enjoy this game. I'm Chris. This is me. It's about me. And the puzzle here is definitely fun. It's fun. It's satisfying. I like the simplicity of sending things up and trying to complete different tower aspects. Yeah, the magnetic cardboard is a bit of a gimmick, but it's a fun gimmick. And even though it's annoying to put these little tower sections into the board, when you've gone through and you've completed your big old boat, and you can see that it's making a little point, and then you're adding things, the masts in to the top sails, and you've created this little ship at the end. It's fun, right? And there are a lot of things out here that really promise to be fun. There are these bridge tokens that start around the map and that you can place on the board either side depending upon where you are. And then if you walk your person around and pass through them, you get the benefit. And so you could try to create an engine where you're just running in circles around, gaining energy, gaining a bunch of stuff, and keep going. Because you can't just go back and forth. You have to keep on going in a straight line until you hit something that makes you turn around. So you could go, boop, 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 boop. Oh no, I've hit the starting space. Okay, I gotta go turn around, etc. That promise is entertaining. The promise that when you are taking back your tokens, all of them have a different symbol on them. And this symbol not only pertains to the achievements where you can get extra points for them, but you also get to do a unique ability of activating that tile. So moving it around, putting it back onto your map, moving your character around the board. And so sort of manipulating and choosing what tiles to push for and what to commit to also feels like it could be pretty fun. There's the idea of upgrading your actions to make them stronger, or even upgrading this top portion. Because if you go to a specific monument on this setup, it's this symbol over here. You can then claim one of these things, and if you're the first person to claim them, you get more symbols. So not only does that contributing to the achievements, but then every time you activate an advance and you move symbols along and they match up with the symbols up top, you get to take that action, and then you get to move your character around 1, 2, 3 one more time, right? Like the possibilities here of pushing things forward. I had, last game I played Ignotus. Whenever you put your bridge down, you unlock a special ability. And so my special ability was like, hey, if I put a wild token in here, whenever I flip this token, which allows me to slot 2 things in at the same time, boom, boom, with 1 advance action, therefore increasing my efficiency and dropping in a bunch of extra stuff. If I've managed to put a wild token that's ended up in this second spot, I then get to flip this over, which allows me to keep on doing that again as long as I've gotten enough wild tokens from the reserve and I'm manipulating my board correct. Like, that seems exciting. Moving things up this track so that you can just place them on the board and place them into whatever section you want without even worrying about investing, but just worrying about like jamming them up this specific track also seems like it has a lot of potential for fun, right? There's a lot of moving parts here, but when it boils down to it, it feels like the game never really gives you an opportunity or a chance to invest in these varied strategies. There are essentially 4 big ways to get points in this game. Have tiles that have contributed to here, have tiles that are on these pillars on the board through jamming up this track, have gotten rid of energy from your reserve, have actually gotten this energy into your play space. For each pair, you get a certain number of points. And then finally, everybody has a level 3 bridge ability that can be worth, 10 points on one side, 2 points per something on the other side. So an average of 8 to 10 points, plus the points that you can get on the achievement track. Like kind of 5 major ways that you can get points in this game. And that's all well and good, but to get the tools that you need to get those points requires a lot of investment. So if I wanted to contribute, if I wanted to get this and have this cool chain going that like, yeah, every time I push these feet through and get everything like build up these feet, just continually only take things that had feet in them so that every time I was running this, every time I was advancing, I got to move my character around 3 times and got a bonus. Like, that feels very exciting, but that'll take you the entire game to do. And then by that time, somebody has already completed the monuments and the game's over. Because there's a really weird rule in this game that kind of accelerates the tempo of the game and makes it in a sense that the rich can get richer. And I think this is important so that the game doesn't drag. I think like design-wise, I think this is an important mechanic. But the first time you get two of the same, like you've completed two monuments, and I've gotten my second tile in there, I get to become a patron of that monument. And as a patron of that monument, any time on my turn that I advance, I get to just construct a level of monument. I get to pick a monument that's out there and I can say like, this one hasn't been constructed yet. I'm putting it on the board. Done. And so anytime I advance my engine, which you're going to have to do in order to get more tiles into circulation and in order to be able to have the ability of activating these tiles, you then get to accelerate the game state. And I think this is necessary so that the game doesn't drag, especially at a higher player count. I've really only played this at a lower player count. But so I understand the necessity of this thing existing, but it also means that the rich get richer, and it also means that the tempo of the game needs to keep on driving, which means that building up to these cool combos that the game kind of presents you're going to be able to do doesn't really happen all that often unless you are so targeted in what you want to do from the very, very beginning of the game. And even still, it takes a while for that to ramp up. And while that is ramped up, your opponents have just been dropping in, you know, piece after piece into other spots and gaining those points. Whereas now you're running around and doing cool things, the game's basically over and you haven't had a chance to catch up. And so I find that like a really weird element to the game because it means the things that like I find very exciting about this game, you aren't likely to see happen that often. And it also, I feel, pushes you in the direction of one strategy for a game that sort of puts itself forward as having all of these options and all these things to consider and all these things to keep track of. Like, yes, I am sending my rows up there because it needs to be completed so that I can then push that up top. And then I can walk my guy 2 spaces versus the efficacy of putting my compass up there. So then I can move it over to another spot so I can lock down that achievement. There's so many things that this game presents to you as options and then doesn't give you time to explore, which is a shame because those options are exciting. And the prospect of those options is exciting. But I don't think strategically they ever really come to fruition. Now, I haven't played this game 100 times. So maybe you see it on the 100th play, but I don't think anybody's going to play this game 100 times other than the designer. And that's a shame because even talking about it gets me excited. Like the ideas get me excited, but then the execution of those ideas or being able to interact with those ideas is not something that really tends to happen, or at least hasn't happened with my plays. I really like that you can commit to these bonuses over here and you can get nothing. You can say, oh yeah, I'm putting a compass here. And then you look down and you're like, oh no, I haven't put any compasses on the board. And you haven't planned that out correctly. And that's also where like this action can come into in terms of like swapping things from your achievement and putting that over there, right? Like you can do those sorts of swaps as long as you still have the ability to get these qualifications. Like you need to have 4 boots on your board, you need to have 2 pillars on your board. But when you have them, you kind of have them. There's the opportunity to rotate 7 discs through, and I found I never really rotated 7. I kind of always did 6 because there was always sort of an optimal setup. I wish that there were more opportunities to get these to actually build that engine, but the only way you can do that is by contributing to this space and then waiting for this space to be completed, which will be completed a max of 4 to 5 times. And who knows at what point in the game that's going to happen, depending upon what other structures people are prioritizing, which is usually dependent upon, hey, I just kind of had these resources in my upper row, I guess I'll throw them out there. I'm never hurting for a spot to put these resources out there, so it's not like I can ever get screwed. And it's kind of like, all right, well, I guess I got some roses. That one's got roses, that one's got roses, that doesn't have roses, I guess I'm going over here, right? And so the agency of those choices seems really large, but I think is a lot smaller in scale than I thought. But by all means, I don't think this is a bad game. I know this didn't get well reviewed on the Dice Tower, and I think they're wrong in their like they gave it like 4 out of 10 or whatever. That'd be a 2 out of 5. And I don't think so. I think it is at least a 3 out of 5. I was going back and forth between like 3 or 3.5 in terms of this game. I think it's a 3.5. I really do. I think it's a good game. I think like a 3 for me is, it's a fine. It's like fine. And I think 3.5 is, it's good. And I think it is good. I like a lot of the systems that it's doing. I really like operating this little puzzle, but there's no connection to the theme whatsoever. It is a theme contrived. It is a game contrived. It is a pun contrived, and it is a you set yourself up for this contrived that everybody's going to say about your game with the unfortunate title. There's no theme here. It doesn't matter. It's a bunch of mechanics mashed together, and a decent puzzle has been spat out on the other side. But it's also one of those games where I don't know if it's going to stand out enough to get it off the shelf, even. You know, in terms of that delayed gratification, I would pick Solkin over this. I would maybe try Arborio, which I've heard great things about. I just don't know if this one is going to end up staying in my collection, because I don't know how often I would end up reaching for it, because it is just a good game. But I think if you really like that idea of the conveyor belt and running the conveyor belts are fun. The asymmetric powers of the characters that you get to unlock by putting bridges down, if you focus on that, those are fun when they happen. They don't happen as frequently as I would like, right? So I'd love to put it forward and be like, yeah, the asymmetry's cool, but I don't really see that much of it. I think the core focus will be on is if you like this and choosing which one tile to replace it, because that's all the time you have, and trying to focus on spitting these out as quickly as possible and pre-planning those turns, then it can be pretty exciting. I would not want to play this at 5 players. I think it would drag to high heaven, and then I would be praising the Lord for this patron token of just being able to end the game sooner. Frickin' frick. I'm already missing one of these things I put somewhere. That's another reason why I don't want to punch these out, is because there's so many little tokens that are around. But this organizer is, you know, it's fine. I wish there were a couple other more helpful organizational bits. Maybe one more tray of this to hold the other odds and sods that you need, but otherwise production value is quite nice. Like the tiles are Azul quality, like these are Azul tiles, which I think are the standout of that game. The magnets are fun, even though they're completely unnecessary and could have just been a deck of cards. I think this sells for like $80 Canadian. At retail. I think you can get some at Board Game Bliss. That's what I was checking recently. And that's how much Spirit Island kind of costs you nowadays. And so I think like for the price, you get a box that's chock full of all of this good stuff. So component wise and like production quality, it's quite nice. And it is one of those games that is a good game that I want to love. And I want to see more of, but what it's showing currently just stutters right before it hits that idea of greatness. But still, like, solid game. I think a lot of people might enjoy this. And yeah, final rating 3.5. I really went back and forth on that one. It was close, but I think it's a 3.5. Kind of pulling it out again and looking at it and remembering my plays confirmed that a bit for me, which is nice. And not horrible rules overhead either. This big old player sheet, you can basically learn most of the game from this, except the key parts that you have to look up in the rulebook. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. I hope that helps you know what the game is about, my experiences of it. Thanks to Age Contrived, the team, for sending it my way. I only decided to say yes to the review copy because my patrons wanted me to. So if you want to have a say at what I review, hey, you can go support me on Patreon, and if you don't, that's okay too. You can just take whatever I give you. Generally, if I'm unsure, if I'm like, yeah, I think so, but I don't know if I have time or the bandwidth or whatever, I'll check in with my Patreon members and they'll be like, yeah, we want to see it. I'll be like, all right, you want to see it? You want me to talk about it? I'm absolutely happy to talk about it. So I hope that was helpful to you all. Thanks everybody for watching. My name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase. And I have no idea of how these magnets work. But they are pretty fun. I mean, look at this friggin' boat. That's a pretty cool boat. Oh, now the other one's gone though. Silly, unnecessary, a bit annoying, but also fun. That's an Age Contrived.